We need to be a party of community leaders, devoted to community service. That's why I'm calling for open nominations for all Liberal candidates in every single riding in the next election.
If a man named David Bertschi is watching television right now, he's just thrown a shoe at his television set because that open nomination process kicked him off the boat in favor of former Canadian Forces General Andrew Leslie. And it caused a lot of trouble within the Liberal Party, right?
Well, firstly, the fire department and the police had to intervene. That's how incendiary this event was. Basically, Bertschi was railroaded by Justin Trudeau. First they said he could run again, and by the way, he did very well in the last election. He ran a close second to the Tory. And then they found totally spurious reasons why he couldn't run, so Justin's star candidate, General Leslie, former General Leslie, could run, and members of the audience supporting Bertschi were outraged that their candidate had been blacklisted and demonized by Justin. And as we heard when you started, Justin promised an open nomination process, a democratic process, in every riding in Canada. This is the 5th riding, to my knowledge, where he has parachuted his own person in.
Yeah, and on screen you're seeing Faith Goldie talking to Trudeau, and Faith Goldie is here. Faith, this is beginning, despite that promise we just played from Justin Trudeau, to be the same old, same old.
Certainly. I mean, it was most famously done, perhaps, with Chrystia Freeland. We saw Zach Pagan, you know, who could be in himself a young, rising star, back out from that nomination. And what do you know? You act like a child at the top of the party, and your candidate's going to do very much the same. If Justin Trudeau were actually serious about the open nomination process, then you would go ahead, amend that party's constitution to take away his powers as a leader to interfere with that so-called open process.
Exactly.
David Bertschi is in Ottawa and joins us now. David, we can talk about this and keep playing the promise that Justin Trudeau made. Some Liberals were upset, as we're discussing over the weekend. Is the Liberal Party, though, most people across Canada, do they care?
Well, I hope all parties and all Canadians care. It's about letting people decide who their candidate of choice is. And, you know, I took Justin and his entourage at face value. He had a golden opportunity to correct the wrong, frankly, to even call me or talk to me, and he chose not to. And instead, they chose on the November 7th letter of my withdrawal of candidacy to leak it to the press a week later instead of responding to my request for reconsideration. And, you know, you need to treat people with respect. You may not like them, but you should, if you want to lead the country and lead a party, treat people with respect. And I think the Canadian public should be treated with respect at all times. And when someone gives their word, you try your best to fulfill those words, but you should at least try to fulfill those words.
Is there any avenue open for you now?
Well, there are many avenues open. I'm leaving all options on the table. I'm going to, go back to my home and meet with the community leaders, people from across the riding, my volunteers, and the people who have supported me so well over the last several years, and my team. And I'm going to consider all the options.
Now, tell us a little bit about your connection with this riding. You live there, you've got roots there, or what's the story here? Yeah, no, I've lived there almost 28 years. We raised our 6 kids. I have a blended family. It's a community that I embrace. I love it. I mean, we do fundraisers for the food bank. I help out with literacy organizations. A couple of weeks ago, we do free seminars for charities and not-for-profit organizations and community associations. A lot of great people. It's one of the most educated ridings in the country, and I think that's probably, it doesn't matter if you're the most or the least or any in between. People recognize that we are supposed to support institutions that promote democracy. Fair, open, transparent nominations is critical to democracy. How can we go abroad and tell people or help people set up political parties if we're going to run our own like this? I'm disappointed, frankly.
I'm a Liberal. I was Communications Director to a former Prime Minister. Could I ask you this question? Would you rule out running as an independent Liberal? I would urge you to do that because you are one of 5 or 6 people who have been railroaded and blacklisted without due process.
Well, I appreciate that, Ray, and I remember meeting you, I think it was in '84 in Ottawa when our Prime Minister at the time, I was doing a lot of pro bono work, and I did a lot, and I remember and I listened to you, and I really enjoy listening to you today. I haven't ruled that out.
Okay. Good to know, and I hope you go.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a second here, Ray, because earlier today, before the show started, I heard you railing about Andrew Leslie. You've got some reasons he's not a good candidate.
Yeah, and I've got three quick reasons. One is he charged $76,000 to move a couple of blocks from one part of Ottawa to the next. Secondly, and probably worst of all, he demonized the democratic state of Israel by saying publicly that the Israelis were targeting women and children, and that, frankly, is a lie. And the third reason is, and it's complex, he gave evidence at a Bosnian war crimes trial, and that evidence was, to say the very least, highly questionable. CTV and CBC did big stories on his appearance before the War Crimes Tribunal, and he also admitted, which kind of surprised me, that maybe one of the medals he received when he became a general, maybe it wasn't totally deserved, but he should speak for himself. I have asked him to respond to questions about this. He ignores me, he ignores everyone else, and I'll tell you something else. When the Liberals were in power, the defense minister was and is a friend of mine, they were going to make Leslie head of the Canadian Defence Force. Fortunately, that never happened.
David Bertschi, let me circle back a little bit to where I started with you, and that is, while we talk about these stories and profile the people who have been kicked off the boat, as I said, by Justin Trudeau after that promise of open and democratic nominations, we talk about it. We're not his friend anyway, to a large degree, but I don't think the Liberal Party gets all that exercised about it.
Well, I think you saw this weekend there are a lot of people exercised about it in Orleans. I mean, these are people that we were encouraging to participate in the political process, and they're very disappointed with what happened, and some of them are outraged, frankly, that their democratic right has been taken away from them. I would hope people take things seriously, and the reason I'm speaking about the issue is because there are a lot of people who have withdrawn because they didn't want to fight the machine. And you know, someone's got to stand up. My grandpa fought in Passchendaele and Ypres. And you know what? He always told me you can make a difference. And if this is a small difference that I can make, that we improve the political process, I'm prepared to do it. And you know, if Justin, as he did last week, he wrote me a letter and said, David, I'm not going to sign your papers as a Liberal candidate anywhere in Canada. And I think that's not right. I think it's not fair. I think Canadians recognize what's fair and what's due process. And I think we have to practice what we preach. And I think all parties do. But I think this is something that I'm prepared to stand up for my rights as a Canadian, and for, more importantly, it's not about Bertschi here, it's about all the residents in Orleans and across the country. They deserve an opportunity to have a say in who's going to represent them.
Mr. Bertschi, what does this say about Justin Trudeau as a leader, not just of his own party, but potentially of this entire country? If not only is he willing to go back on his promises, but flagrantly disobey them at a cost of those nearest to him, what does that say about his character?
Well, I'm not sure he's doing it at a cost to those nearest to him, because he's actually helped them get elected, or at least selected. What it says is, I believe he should have been given better advice, frankly, by his entourage of unelected officials. I think they had an opportunity, in my case in particular, to say, look, these are the facts. You say his debt's not on track. Well, guess what? I've raised over 100 grand in 2014. I have approximately 50 left to go. Well, he's on track and he's ahead of schedule. If he looks at the facts, I think he had an opportunity to say, look, you know what? Let's have a fair and open democratic nomination, and yet that didn't happen. I'm disappointed. I think we have to change the rules. I think Elections Canada Act has to be changed to allow the citizens of our country to have free and open, unfettered access to vote for our candidates. I think there's some good that will come of this. I'm confident there is, but maybe he'll get a few better advisors around him.
So pointing to the advisors, I mean, the question then becomes, shouldn't he have been able to make up his own mind on this, as most of the heavy lifting happening behind the scenes with his group of unelected, just his entourage?
Well, I think that's a common refrain for a lot of people. in public office. There's a lot of people behind the scenes. They may get a degree, but they don't have any real life experience, and they hop onto the political process. I mean, I was asked to run or invited to run in the 80s. I was a young business person. I said, you know, I really appreciate this opportunity, but I think I need experience. I was 35, 36 years old, and I wanted to learn. I wanted to have experience. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to try cases. I wanted to do some good so I could be better when I did present myself as a candidate. I still think I have something to give, but you know, life is what it is, and it's not how you fall, it's how you get up and make sure you don't do anything wrong.
Could I ask whether you think you have any legal recourse? My friend Christine Ennis is suing Justin Trudeau because he did to her what he's done to you, which is to demonize and blacklist you publicly. Your reputation is your only valuable asset. Can you not ask a court to grant you an order which questions or maybe even overrules Justin's draconian decision in your case?
Well, one of the things, as you know, the Act and the Constitution of all the parties provides for the unfettered discretion of the leader and his or her campaign co-chairs to do it. So it's really a question. I'm looking at all options. I'm seriously considering them. I'm going to take some time, though, Ray, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm going to take some time.
I don't blame you. It's a serious issue.
It's a very serious issue. You know, I believe in a balanced approach to politics, and maybe that's why some of his people didn't like it too much. You know, when one party does something good, I don't believe in criticizing them. I believe in saying, that's good, let's do this as well, or let's improve on it. And, you know, I'm not sure there's a lot of balance in politics in Canada at the moment, and that worries me.
Yeah, it's, you know, if you were to win the nomination, I'd be a person who probably would be cheering for the Conservative running against you. And yet talking to you here, I like you, and I think that it is the people of your riding that should have that choice.
I agree with you.
Well, all the best to you.
Thank you very much for taking the time. And I wish you and all your viewers a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. And Faith and Ray, thank you.
Thank you.